We may look like swans gracefully floating across the water, but underneath that water,
we're like this.
Are flapping webbed feet. What's happening? Do you need to take a breath for a moment?
Yes, I do.
Been an interesting morning so far, isn't it?
It has, yeah. It's
going to get a whole lot more interesting because Tasha Salinas is on with us as well.
Yeah, if you remember last week, Tasha was saying that she was gonna be doing a big talk on Easter Sunday, and I think she probably went in with a blaze of glory on
420 blazing.
420 blazing. So let's bring her on and find out how she got on. Hey, Tasha, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for that. Highly, whatever introduction. I was trying to think of some cute puns, but I couldn't do it.
It was high.
It was high. Yeah, I came in on a high note. How about that?
That's amazing. So yeah, loads. Stuff seems to be happening to us all the time right now. Like we're having these big realizations, and stuff seems to be bubbling up a lot. And the more we have these conversations, the more bubbles up, and it's like, oh my god, where are we going now?
I found Michael Beckwith, or refound him thanks to your mention of him when you were here last time, Tasha, as well. Did you not mention Michael Beckwith? Did you not? It was, New Thought Spirituality.
Neville Goddard. It was
bizarre.
Ernest Holmes, who you brought up last time. I don't know who Michael
Beckwith was on the show The Secret.
He was on The Secret, and he's a remarkable teacher. Funnily enough, maybe the connection I made in my mind, he was talking to somebody about the is it the endocannabinoid connection inside the brain? Because you were talking about that, I think, last time, unless my mind is completely melted since you were last here.
No, it hasn't melted. You're coming into greater awareness. So where you found the information doesn't necessarily matter, but you found what you needed to find about the endocannabinoid system. So so you got into that. What was
it? Was just the host of the podcast, whose name I forget. Forgive me, podcast host. But he was talking to, I think he's Dr. Michael Beckwith. He was on the Secret, and he's an incredible teacher. Saying some incredible. Look him up if you wish. Those of you who are watching us this morning, Michael Beckwith, you might already know him. If not, he's a fascinating man. And it just came up in their conversation about. I think things that we've been saying that what was he talking about? Indigenous. We have indigenous access to freedom and well-being. Whilst we've been looking for it endogenously, and that's where the what did you call them?
Endocannabinoid system.
That's what I meant to say. Yes, that came into the conversation about our internal chemistry.
Oh yes, I wove that into the talk. One thing about the endocannabinoid system I like to say is that we know our immune system, right? And our immune system acts like the gates to entry, right? Like into our system. We can't hold the immune system, but it's there and we know it exists and how we can influence it. The endocannabinoid system affects what's inside the gates. So our homeostasis, our sense of balance on the inside is all ruled by the endocannabinoid system, which is the master regulatory body of all internal regulatory systems of our body. And so we have endogenous cannabinoids that satisfy the system, when one thing was created to be satisfied by another. But our diet and our culture and our lifestyle has really dropped the balance that we need for actual homeostasis. And we get that from our outside of us, outside of us. So you can get it through words, right? But you can get it through plants, you can get it through teas, you can get it through those flower tinctures that we use, a lot of these more natural remedies, in addition to cannabinoids. And when we consume those, or when we take those in any manner, smoking, topical, inhaling, like insertion, like any of the things, our body starts to heal itself. So it sends messages to empower what's already in our body with the assistance and support of Gaia, which that's how I refer to cannabis, as alive and well. And it helps my body elevate its consciousness to be able to regenerate and heal itself. Just like a leaf grows when receiving the right and proper culture of nutrients in the soil, the internal culture matters for my homeostasis. And that was how I was able to infuse the return of Christ consciousness on 420, which just so happened to be Easter Sunday.
Yes.
And other things happened in the religious world.
Resurrection
Around yesterday and or Sunday and Monday with the passing of our Pope. And I don't say that lightly. No. But I really do believe there's a breakdown of a lot of the structures that we once relied on outside of ourselves as we now become more sovereign and autonomous, starting with our consciousness.
Yes. Thank you for that.
That was, hi guys, good morning. How are you?
That was
Good morning.
That was the Easter message for you.
Yeah.
Right there.
I think that's quite fascinating as well, because like just in reference to what you were saying about structures breaking down, in particular the passing of the Pope around the date of Easter Sunday, we also got message that Klaus Schwab actually has stepped down from the WEF as well on the same day that the Pope passed. So there are wheels within wheels and patterns playing out all over. How was your talk, and what came from that?
Yeah, it's really wild. We're in new times for sure. The talk, I arrived and I knew it was going to be big. And so first of all, I did a sound session, which is the crystal singing bowls. I don't know if you guys do sound immersion, but I love it. And it's something that I learned and that I do. And so we had a 15-minute sound session, and all 7 bowls are kind of aligned with the 7 chakra as far as their frequencies that they give out. And so this was unintentional, but the day went great. But as I started, I was like, because I'm doing the talk, I don't want to talk a lot during this sound session, because as a channel, messages just come through. And so as I set up the thing, I let people know in case they're new, because we in the West haven't always done crystal singing bowls. It was more of like an Eastern kind of thing. And so I get to explain like, hey, your body naturally falls in resonance with these frequencies. And each of these frequencies match one of our chakra, which are simply our energetic centers, which are simply like how we feel our emotion and different senses that we have innate to our human body. And so I was like, as you hear these frequencies, your body will have the opportunity to align itself with the frequency of that root chakra, of that sacral chakra, of that solar plexus chakra, of that heart chakra, right? And I talked them through that, like as I did it very lightly. And I said, like, anything in there is welcome to come to the surface. And so kind of like tilling the soil of all of our energetic centers, because if we hear something that might draw an offense or draw a wall up, we want to be aware of that. And so that wasn't that I didn't do that on purpose, but that's what I did. So leading into it, the musician did all Beatles covers. Imagine, Let It Be. He did My Sweet Lord, which is not quite Beatles, but still. And all the words and all the messages really flowed well. And as I set up the talk, I said, hey, friends, this is, they know a little bit about who I am. I said, this is my story. And with my story is how I found my Christed consciousness. And later I talked about what that is, and we can go there if you want. But I was like, with my story, it's very easy to kind of pick and see lessons that come out of the way that I tell my story. I'm not trying to interpret history. This is simply her story. And it was cute in that moment. But I said, this is simply her story. And then effortlessly flowed into the way that I've come into how I am, is leading into my feminine energy, my receptivity, knowing that in order to hear God, in order to see Jesus resurrected, so to speak, the metaphor of Jesus is that I feel that we are all meant to do what he did, like he told us that we would. So Jesus and I are siblings, so to speak. But at that time, not many people could. So it blew everything out of the water. We know how the story ends. But to today, I think we all can see his story reflected in ours. And so as I did that, I said, I don't mean to dismantle the organized religion that I came from. I'm just here to tell my story. And the way it flowed together, it was cool for me to be that raw, but it scared the crap out of me, because people in the Christian faith, like, this is what is blasphemous, right? And the more I said it, and then we can talk again about the meat of the talk if you want to. But then afterward, I was fine. I felt filled. I felt happy, like I had done what I was sent to do in that moment. But then also at the same time, I'm like, that's what I had to do. That's what I had to say. And there were people that were like, oh my gosh, who weren't even raised Christian, but they felt some resonance to their internal like conversation. And I'm like, if you're a new thought leader in spirituality, you're going to have to say the things that nobody else has said yet, or maybe that they said, but bring your perspective to it. Because I'm not rewriting anything. I'm just understanding that as we evolve, we start to see what we once saw in from a higher perspective. And it's easy once you learn how effortless it is to forget that you had to be told how to think and operate. Thank you, church, for what it did. But at the same time, I naturally fall into a rhythm of ritual and worship and surrender and strength. So anyway, all that to say, it went well, but it grew me. And so, of course, I had to like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But that's a cycle. So anyway, all that to say, it went well. I know I did what I was supposed to do, but it also grew me, and it's going to continue to grow me.
Great.
I love how you say it also grew me, because I notice that when I have a feeling of exaltation, of sudden grace, sudden release, sudden like letting go of things, soon after my body must, I didn't quite understand it in this way at first, but I noticed straight after, like within the same day or so, there's a bit of a shitstorm comes up for me, like an emotional something comes up. And I now realize this is my own interpretation of it, is that my body feels safe to release anything that has felt off, and it releases it. But I think it's worth people knowing that and understanding that could happen to them, because it can take you on a really bumpy ride, can't it? If you're having these highs and then having these real like sucky lows.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it helps me come back into balance. So I'm curious as to how it grows you. Like, how do you work with the potential highs and lows?
Yes. To say the things that I say, you have to have a measure of audacity, right? You have to have a little bit of gumption and like, you know what? This is what I feel to be true. And it's not as though it just kind of came out sideways. Like when I say things that I say, and they do kind of sound new coming out of my mouth. And there are times that I am surprised at what channels through, but ultimately the big points that I hit, I've had in my psyche for about 3 to 6 months or so, because I've always been asked to believe, myself and really, test me in this and test me to see if what I'm telling you is true. And I'm like, okay. And what that means is run it through all of my filters of fear and doubt and logic and trust and emotion. And as I do that, the message just rings stronger and stronger. So then when I have a microphone in front of me, or I have an audience, and thank God I keep being given more and more people to hear what comes out of my mouth, it's a forward falling trust fall. And then when those inevitable moments happen where I'm like, who the hell do you think you are saying what you say? I'm like, I am Tasha Salinas. And as I know myself to be in this right now moment, is to be someone that is honored to is anointed in the way she speaks. If Jesus did it, if so many people through history did it, if Martin Luther King did it, and if it changed our society, then who the hell am I not to do it? Right?
Yes.
Why shouldn't I do it? And so at that time, it was about segregation, racial, and such and so forth. Right now, I really, truly believe it's the fight of releasing control and just trusting that we've always been divine.
Yeah.
Because if we're evolving, gosh, when are we going to understand that we're evolving? And so our cycles of healing, like you talked about, Louisa, they are cyclical in the shape of a figure 8, infinity, because there's always going to be a fall. I know it. Preach. There's always going to be a rise and a fall. And the thing that pushes that thing forward is our human free will. We can't fight against time. But as we learn to understand it, our actions determine what happens when. And our actions also include the response to what happens outside of us. All that to say, I say a very powerful thing from the knowing that is my gut knowing, and part of me honing my channel skills. And then also part of me honing my channel skills is honing and knowing and caressing the human that it comes from. Because there is a measure of consciousness necessary when I say things like, you get to remember that you don't ever have to die again. That's powerful. And then I hit stop and then I freak out because I'm like, who are you to say that? So anyway,
I love that so much. One of the things that just take you back a second, when you were talking about the figure of 8, I was thinking, oh, it's cyclical. But hang on, if I'm having these highs faster, I'm going to have these lows faster. Wow. With the figure of 8, as you said it, there's a center point. And I'm guessing that as you get better practice at it, you don't have to react necessarily to the highness or the expansion of it, or react to the lowest or the feeling of, oh my God, my life's falling apartness of it. You can kind of stay in the center and think, yeah, wow, I'm in acceptance. I'm accepting that this is life, and life has these natural curves and rhythms.
For some reason, our eldest son made a Mobius strip the other day. Do you know
Mobius strip?
Mobius strip, and it's a band of paper, but the way you attach it to itself means that it's continuous. Okay. So it is a figure of 8, but you can track your finger along it or a pencil along it, and it never ends in this way that we're talking about. And he was quite blown away, and he cut it in half and it made a bigger one, and it was like, he was fascinated by what it was. Magic. It was like, it was real magic in his hands, and the sense of what awe and wonder and realization as he shared it with me, and for us both as he shared it with me, it's quite extraordinary. And this,
it's weird that you mention him, because out of all of our family, he's the most level of all of us, isn't he? He just stays at this even keel at 13, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, it's good fun. Try it at home. A Mobius strip. You can see a YouTube video of making it, and
I will
as therapy. But there's definitely a theme today, it would appear, Tasha, of daring, boldness, courage. Courage, of course, it's about the heart, isn't it? Courage, coração, love, and this.
Sorry, coração is Portuguese for heart.
Yeah, the core in French as well. That's the heart, isn't it?
Cœur.
So to come from
hearing I was hearing Mexican Spanish in Spanish.
Yeah. It's the heart and courage.
But something came to mind when you were talking. Is for a long time now, for a few decades, we've been saying, well, you might as well. What's the worst thing that can happen? In the situations you're speaking about, it's perhaps now the time to consider what's the best thing that could happen.
1000%.
Right? Just go for it anyway.
Absolutely. And Louisa, I'm going to bring back the figure 8 thing. And you had talked about it's going faster and faster. And that's the evolution of time. We now can learn our lessons that quickly. Whereas once these lessons would have taken a while, to work
like
through.
30 years, 50 years.
Exactly. And now we're getting corrected much more quickly because we're manifesting much more quickly. Now, getting to kind of like another thing about that figure 8, I use it a lot, but I use it vertically. I use it that when you're thinking, when your brain and your heart are in coherence, there is a conversation going on there. And we've already spoken about how we, in our brain ourselves, our left brain, right brain, we balance our logic and our intuition. When we have that whole brain synchronization, something happens. It starts to fall into coherence with our heart. So then we have that heart-mind coherence, which brings us into that state, that meditative, more present state of being. So that's where we find our emotional regulation. So the highs aren't as high or the lows aren't as high, just like your 13-year-old son, who probably, honestly, and I'm going to say a new thought thing, these new generation kids are hybrid kids. Their DNA is shifting. Their bodies are more and more crystalline as we're alive going through the transition. A lot of these younger kids are born with this newer gear, so to speak. All that to say, he's probably, inherently more level, because he's more embodied of his divine presence. Also, I think that's why we see an influx of autistic children and all these different things in the kiddos, because we're actually evolving. And I'm going to say it. And also, everybody, and I've said it before, but every time I say it, it kind of confounds me. And this is my human and my divine, right? But this is when we're going to have ET contact. There will be external, but there is endogenous hybrid species that are coming through the humanoids. And again, every single time, well, they are humans. Every single time there's an angel or an alien, the first thing they say is do not fear.
Yes.
And at this point, when we're arriving in our consciousness, when we see our babies and they're starting to look, and science is going to prove to us, and we're going to see some stuff where they did stuff with former humanoids that they were scared. You know what I mean? Like stuff's going to come up. All that to say, we're not going to be afraid because they're coming from us.
Yes.
And they do come in peace because they are emotionally regulated, because spiritually they're more mature than us.
Yeah.
They're not having to live out the karma of human history. And we are, and that's okay. We're all light workers. We're all meant to do that. If you're resonating with what I say and you're like, this kind of makes sense. Like this is our charge on earth, is to bring the awakening. And that's why everything, not bring, but be the awakening. And as it's happening in the right now moment, and we're seeing on the news and the tickers are telling us everything that's happening, when we were talking a year ago about waking up and the new reality and in the moment and all of these things, we didn't know, but we were actually pulling in higher dimensional information to prepare for what's happening. And it's going to get, like, this week is kind of a volatile week. The next 7 days.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry,
Yes.
say what sort of week?
This week.
Volatile.
Oh, yeah, yes, right, yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is a very
certainly
and I
seems-
don't watch the news. I don't watch anything. And that's on purpose because I'm empath, I'm sensitive, but I have sources and I know a little bit of seeded stuff just to confirm some things, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a big one.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, when you say angels and aliens, it's possible that they are the same thing.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, when I look at humans, they make no sense to me. And not like what I mean is, like, I don't mean you and Carl and I and everyone watching, but like our presence here on Earth doesn't make sense. Every other creature knows itself, knows where it lives, knows how to build its houses, doesn't need any kind of technology to be able to do that. Where would we be without all the I know there are some Kalahari Bushmen and a few people that live on the like live here. But it makes to me, it doesn't make any sense. This, like, some really big questions.
I think it's an expression of our potential as well, though, isn't it? That we are yet to realize or grow into something.
Well, I just think there's loads of mysteries in terms of the architecture around the world, and why some things are so huge and some things, just the alignments, the perfection of things that we don't seem to be able to replicate or don't replicate.
We have to jump timelines to understand them, don't we? We do have to jump timelines. It can't be understood within the current.
There's more mysteries, I think, than explanations. Loads of there's loads of sort of explanations about how we came from monkeys and blah blah blah. There's something else going on.
You're not comfortable with
I'm
that.
not comfortable with any of that.
You know what I think? I think the answer is that we are the aliens and we are the angels. We always have been. And I think the confusion is that we're too smart for our own good. So we're trying to make it make logical sense. And it will, as we learn more about metaphysics, really, honestly. But people want scientific proof. And we created science to be solved. And also with solving science, so to speak, because we're always on the quest. That's fine. We're built for that. Solving science, though, is going to learn that it's consciousness and that we're creating everything. So we are the angels, we are the ETs, we are all of it. And when we look at Neanderthals and the human evolutionarily, the species evolution of the human body, it's no different than the evolution of a cat or a dog or this or that, but we're conscious of ours. So we're studying ourselves as we're growing from the future because we're time travelers. But again, we only ever experience the right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we're on Earth.
Well said. Yeah,
we've got quite a few comments.
Science always catches up in the end, right?
Does it?
Good morning. Says Deb earlier on. I celebrate 420 also. It was also my daughter's birthday. Wow, excellent, Deb. Good to see you here this morning. I've studied the endocannabinoid system as well. I learned about it so I could come off pain medication. Excellent. Donna Marie's with us this morning. Good to see you, Donna Marie. And Neva, happy to catch you live. Hi from Belgium. Hello.
I know Neva's watched us before.
Oh, excellent. Hello to
but
Belgium.
not being. I actually come from Belgium. My ancestors come from Belgium. So hello.
Was that Belgian?
No, that was me.
Hello.
I think they say hello.
Hello. Right,
Hello.
okay.
I can say a few words, but not many.
But not broadcastable ones, as I recall. Glad to hear that. The people we look up to for our inspiration also have moments of fear and doubt too, but seeing how you go for it, that is inspirational, Tasha. How you describe that and how what's the best thing that can happen, and that's that produces the most extraordinary results that we've experienced and witnessed here from you. So thank you for that. Carl letting us into his vulnerability yesterday and Friday. I found it. I'm glad you did, Deb. I was not entirely sure about how that would go, but I'm glad you found that helpful.
And I think this is about Digby, our sun sign. He's a Scorpio.
Yeah.
But I think it's Moon in Aquarius that is helping him stay on an even keel.
Said to me, he spoke to me in my language this morning, in the way that we're talking about. We kind of have to hear things in the symbols and language we understand. He said that thought stuff you've been talking about, it definitely works. Look at my sweet stash. It was manifestation. I think it was more for him than for me than for him. He was sort of relating that.
He opened a cupboard and he was expecting sweets and he found them and he was very happy.
Just arriving, heartbreaking coherence is amazing, says Bob. Morning, Bob. Interesting take on kids being more crystalline DNA. I believe that too, Tasha. My granddaughter has definitely evolved higher than I was at her age. We're seeing that when we were kids.
I love that.
I just wrote in my journal, why do we have the amazing brain we have, but only use a small fraction of it? Yes. Why? No, they're not. Angels aren't aliens. Angels are created to help humankind. Aliens, 22 species contributed in creating the human as it is now. Fair enough.
Well, this is something we can
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Okay, so same for our DNA as well. To Deb there from Neva, and I think that brings us up to date in the chat there. Wonderful, and almost the end of the show. These shows just fly by, don't they?
I know, and I think maybe will you stay behind and record another one for next week?
Yes, I absolutely will, and I want to honor Neva's comment. I believe there's so many explanations that overlay one another depending on someone's perspective and knowledge and what they know. These are just seeds of activation. So yes, you're exactly right. That's exactly what they are. Everybody has their own unique perspective that brings them to the truth. So what you said, Neva, is exactly true. Energetically, we're saying the same thing with different words. Yeah,
and that's a very important share or insight, I think, at the moment. I did a live stream, a very, very different and quite random live stream yesterday. And somebody came into the chat who we didn't know and said, you're broadcasting from a Catholic country. You should have a minute's silence for the Pope. And me and my co-host kind of looked at each other virtually. And it was like, instead of reacting, like being told what we should do and wondering if we were being trolled, it's like, oh, okay, we just had a minute's silence there and then. And it led on for me to think, what's the value in things? We're very well equipped and rehearsed, aren't we, in responding and wanting to be right and argue with things, because that's the kind of age we've been living in. But if we for a moment stop and say, okay, what's the value here? There was no loss to us, and it was enriching to honor our Catholic brothers and sisters in Portugal for a moment and be aware of their pain and suffering and what might be going on for them. There was absolutely no skin off our nose. It was an enriching experience. And so, why wouldn't we look for value and commonality and what's the best thing that can happen rather than what's the worst thing that can happen? Deb, you need to make it now. I know, Deb. But, however, we can't just do that now. And I agree. Chickens in my yard seem to make more sense than some peeps in our community. 'Twas ever thus, I think.
We're going to have to go now.
Yeah, Donna's go and talk to the chickens. And we're going to go in 10 seconds, but we're going to record some more.
And our part 2 will be next week.
All right,
so thank you for joining us.
Tasha. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.